and welcome to That Squirrel Speaks. Today is Thursday, March 15th. This is episode 200 and something. How are you? I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry, and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. Thanks for stopping by, MK. How are you guys? Sorry, lighting feels weird today, but I can't quite... The daylight savings time, y'all. What's going on? Seems like such a simple process. I know everybody's complaining about it. How is it that I'm this tired? It's the same. The time is the same. Time is the same. Time is... What's wrong with me? Why am I so sleepy? And so hungry, quite frankly. Really, body? What's going on? I just want to sleep and snack. Some of you were like, clearly that's what you do all the time anyway. And to you I say, hush, you're not even watching, so why am I pretending you are? But really, I am so groggy and hungry all the time this week. Less hungry than groggy, but gosh, so groggy. Whatever. You'd think, 40 years almost I've been doing this thing we change the daylight twice a year. You'd think I'd be okay with it. Apparently not. I think it's getting worse. Is it getting worse as I get older? I don't know. So anyway, how are you? Are there any shenanigans this week? Of course there aren't. But there are shenanigans of the mind. So we'll talk about those. We'll talk about some knitting and some spinning, and we'll also have some shameless self-promotion. That's right, kids. There's a podcast, not a podcast. That's what this is. There's a shop update March 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Are you ready for it? I'm not, but I will be. I've got like 10 days. I'm going to be fine. So let's do shenanigans of the mind. Oh, I forgot. I should probably do like what I'm wearing. I can't remember. It's Brooklyn Tweed pattern. I just redid it for Knits from the Grips. And yet, can't really recall what it's called. I feel like it begins with a C. Is that enough for you to know? Probably not. Good luck. Anyway. Capiro. Kapapapa. These are the things I should do before I record this podcast. Carapino. Carpino. C-A-R-P-I-N-O. Which is by Carol Feller. Okay. It's supposed to be a pullover, and I made it into a cardi. It's also supposed to have sleeves. We'll talk more about sleeves later. Sleeves and I just don't know what to do with them. So let's talk about shenanigans in the mind. Oh, that's right. So there's really not that much, but Craftsy had their unlimited streaming weekend. How exciting. Last year I wanted to partake, and I actually did watch some of it, but our internet speed was slow enough that I couldn't actually watch very much. This year it's much better. So this year I got to watch I watched vegetable gardening with Doug Green. I highly recommend that. It was very good. If you're an inexperienced gardener, which I am. It was a very interesting class model. Like, it really is just him talking to you like this. I mean, with good information, but it's this very casual, most of their classes, or at least the ones I've seen, have been filmed like in a studio, and they're a bit more formalized. And this one, while it had a good structure and was clearly, you could see there was like an outline that was clearly followed, it still felt very casual, and like Mr. Green was just chatting you up in his sunroom. It was very good though. And so again, that was a very beginner level class, but I found it to be useful, especially again with just like with knitting or anything else. The internet is a beautiful thing, but it's also a very terrible thing in that it gives you so much information that you sometimes feel like you get. Again, right? Like, don't look up any parenting tips, right? Because then you're like, now we're doing everything wrong. And there's 75 things that we should be doing right, but that we're not, but those are all contradictory to one another. So it's kind of like that with gardening too. Not quite as bad. Okay, not nearly as bad, because I feel much less terrible about killing my 3-cent tomato seedling from seed than I do from ruining my whole human child's life. But it's still conflicting and challenging. Just saying. But I did find it was good. And it was a good, like, coalescence of other information that, again, you could get for free on the internets and like through your library and things like that. But it was just nice. Again, it was just a nice, pleasant way to spend some time spinning some yarn. Okay. And then I also watched the Gudrun Johnston. She has a craftsy class on her Hap. Did I hear her name of? Jeez Louise, people. Anyway, her Hap that I'm currently knitting, she actually has a craftsy class that is for a basic, for like a beginner. Hansel, that's right. I was like Gretchen, that's not right. Hansel. So she has a craftsy class that is specifically about that Hap. So it was nice that I was able to watch. I watched like the introductory bit that was a little bit of general Hap knowledge, history-ish sort of things, which I found to be very enjoyable, and also makes me want to wear all of the aprons with my triangular shawls tucked into them. Hello? Because apparently somehow I did not like... I've seen pictures of women doing it all the time, but I just never quite clicked into my brain. But the way that because you know, often when you have those like traditionally triangular shawls that are deeper than they are, you know what I mean? Like they're not the really wide ones that you can use more of like a scarf or a shawl that we think about wearing the modern way. The modern way. But you know what I mean. But really like the square shawl folded in half or that proportion triangle. It's like you kind of feel like you never quite, like to get it deep enough to actually wrap around you, it's like huge, right? But they would wear them just crossed over and tucked into their aprons. Hi, yet another reason I should wear aprons all the time. I love aprons so much. I actually have had like a, pinafore apron love since like high school. In fact, I really wanted to be Amish for like more than a hot minute. I'm not going to pretend. In the like aesthetics of my life, wearing an apron a lot. The Amish don't even wear particularly aprons a lot, but in my head they did. But so, yeah, style goals. All short sleeve sweaters, triangular shawls, and aprons. That's my way forward. Okay, so I was about to talk about how my daughter thinks these are the most embarrassing things ever. I had to get new glasses because, I don't know if you remember a while ago, I told you that I was getting bifocals. Well, apparently, like I really did not need not that I didn't need bifocals, but my bifocal prescription is so low that something about like the bifocal combined with, I had the half glasses, which I really loved. They were like rose gold on the top. I was like, oh, these are so fancy. But they were making me super nauseous and headachy. So I tried them and I really wore them for like 2 weeks and I constantly was like, I feel really awful. And then suddenly it occurred to me that it was probably the glasses. So I had to go back to my old prescription and just get some new glasses. Well, I didn't have to get new glasses. I could have just worn my old ones, but... So because I needed to go online to get cheapo glasses because my bifocals were super expensive and I can't wear them, I also had to get these because, hello, my daughter hates them. So she has little knowing that while she's complaining about these, my real future is going to be filled with short sleeve sweaters, triangular shawls tucked into my apron that I'm fully wearing everywhere. It's on. No, I'm not doing that to embarrass her. I'm doing it as my authentic self. When will I be brave enough to be my authentic self? I don't know, my 40s are coming. I've already done the short sleeve sweater. I'm hardcore into that. Just have to make the bridge into wearing aprons all the time, which that's going to be a challenge. Okay, let's face it. Like, that is going to be a challenge. That's going to raise some eyebrows. It's going to raise a little bit of like, what is that fat lady wearing an apron for on a Thursday at the grocery store? But whatever. Why do I care? What do I have to lose? Anyway, moving on. Craftsy class. So, oh, I got those from Zeni. Z-E, or Zenny, or however you say that. Zenni. These two. These were a whole $15, y'all. Anyway. So, okay, so watch the Gudrun Johnston class. Oh, and so one good thing about the class, one thing that's super nice when you get to do those free weekends is you feel like you can like just take a little bit. So like I didn't feel guilty about just watching the intro that was about Hap shawl history. And just going to the point where, because it is really like a methodical work through of the pattern. It's like pattern assistance super level. Do you know what I mean? Like she just really works, she takes you through the pattern. So there is a place on the pattern where you decrease, like after you've done the feather and fan or the shale, old shale, whatever you'd like to call it, border, and you're starting to do the applied edging, you actually do some decreases. And I wasn't sure why that was. It was more decreases than you needed to do just to have the pattern repeat match up. And so I assumed it was because sometimes when you do applied edging, it gets a slight ruffle to it. I assume that's why that you did that, but it doesn't really tell you in the pattern because that's not usually how we write patterns. But I was able to like zoop, zoop, zoop forward on the class and figure out that that's indeed what it was. So that was nice. Yay, free weekend. So another class I took on the free craftsy weekend that I highly recommend is the full bust adjustment class. Which I apologize, I don't remember her first name, but it's by the maker of Cashmerette Patterns. She's this little blonde Aussie lady right here. And so if you don't know what a full bust adjustment is, it's just a way to adjust a sewing pattern to accommodate a larger bust. Apparently most sewing patterns are drafted no matter what size to accommodate something like a B-cup bust line. And so a lot of us aren't B-cups. So anyway, so she talks about, now her pattern line is written for C through H cup abutments. Why can I not say that? C through H cup bust adjustments. C, bust abutments. That's probably the name of the film. Anywho, and so they're actually drafted as such. You can choose, you can use your measurements to choose which a bust adjustment that you need to do for your sewing pattern. But she talks about how to actually do that adjustment when it's not included. So she talks about both how to, well, she talks about several different things, like if it has 2 bust starts, if your sewing pattern has 1 bust start, and if it has no bust starts. So I thought that was very helpful. And I think I actually may purchase, I don't know, I can't decide if I'm going to purchase that class, but it was very good. And if you haven't seen it and you're into sewing, I highly recommend it. Because I'm kind of in a place where I love the simplicity and the ease of the, not the dress, number 1 dress pattern. Highly enjoy it. It's great. It's a perfect intro into the sewing world. But I would like to find something that has the like aesthetic simplicity of this dress jumper tunic, but does fit a little bit better. Because again, I have a big bust differential between my bust and to get it to fit my bust, also I often have gaping here or kind of fall out here. And I have modified it to make that less noticeable, but I would like it to be a better fit. Whether or not it's on this pattern or another one, yeah, that's... So I have these 2 patterns that I've purchased from them previously that I have not yet sewn, just because they look a little bit less casual than I feel like I am currently in my personal style. But I'm thinking that if I modify this version shorter, it might be fun for summer. But anyway, that is the Upton dress and the Lenox shirt dress that I just showed you. So that was very interesting. And then, then I also took the egg course. That's right, kids. I watched some other bits and bobs of food things, but the egg course was very fun. They talked about poaching eggs and By the way, I've never wanted sous vide until I watched them poach the eggs in the sous vide thing, and then I'm like, oh, settle down. You don't need that. But so that has like sprung me onto a week of egg lovingness where I am excited about eggs. Nobody else in my family is particularly excited about eggs, but that's okay. I am. So I have enjoyed some frittata. I've enjoyed some baked egg in spicy tomato sauce with crusty bread. Oh, that's so delicious. I've enjoyed those things. It's been very excitable. That's not right. It's been very enjoyable. It's also been slightly excitable. But then let's talk about knitting. Okay. I thought there was something else I was supposed to talk to you about, but now I can't recall what it was. So we'll get into knitting. I finished, I showed you a while back probably, one of my bats from the Knit Spin Farm bat subscription. She has a bat club, y'all. And so Yarn Hoarder was so kind to gift me one of her first round. And so this is one of the bats that I had spun and decided to thread ply. So it's just a single from that bat plied with sewing thread. Essentially, it's Coates & Clark's bold hand quilting thread, I think. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And basically it's some sort of like cotton coated, like, so it must have the traditional core, but then it has cotton coating, and so it's a much thicker than a regular sewing thread, and it was very enjoyable. I enjoyed working with it. I don't know that I'll do this technique again. Maybe I will, though. I should spin my single a bit tighter if I do, though. But yeah, it's kind of a fun look. It has a little interesting texture because, again, the single you're plying it with, really, y'all, the single that you're plying it with, stop focusing on my face camera, there we go, because that thread is thinner in all likelihood than or it doesn't have to be, but it could be the same size, but in my case it was thinner than the thread, than the single that I was plying it with. It has a fun kind of like knobbly effect, which I enjoyed. See, there it does. I didn't ply it as tightly there. So anyway, so it's just kind of an experiment to see what it was like. It was fun. That thread is kind of expensive, as I discussed another time. But certainly you can use coupons or what have you. By the way, did you know that you were allowed to use multiple coupons at Joann's? Apparently, if they're from different sources say, you can actually stack them. So you can like have your online coupon, your email coupon, and if you get like a print coupon still, apparently you can use all those at once. Who knew? So in that case, it would not be terribly expensive. So there it is. Yay, yarn! And then, so speaking of yarn, speaking of Joy in the Spring, speaking of Knit Spin Farm, I also purchased this bat. Look at this. This is just a section of the bat, obviously. Well, I actually didn't purchase it. It was gifted to me at the Knitting Pipeline Retreat. What's going on with me and my words today? And so here is my first bobbin. So that's half of it. And then I have the other half almost done. I just have this and a tiny bit more to do. So this one I am trying to spin with higher twist and less battiness. So I tend to, when I'm spinning bats, just get really excited by how fluffy they are and just like long draw everything. And for me, that means a very airy, very low twist single. So I'm trying to do it. And it's definitely not worsted spun, but semi-worsted, semi-woolen. Like it's closer to the middle of that spectrum. So yeah, so it's much thinner and much more consistent across. I mean, it still has the texture of the bat in it, so you get like the fun little nuppy bits, but less overall just wild woman twigs in my hairish. So there's that. And then in knitting, I finished some socks. I actually did pretty good with socks this time around. I don't know what happened. But here are my Porthos socks. which I've shown you before. And I knit those with Hazel Knits Artisan Sock in the Woodland colorway. And aren't those super cute for my papa? I really like how this pattern texture turned out. However, I did not really particularly enjoy knitting this texture. It's really basic. It's not a hard pattern to memorize. It's only like 6, just like a 12-row repeat, but it's really just 6 and then it kind of stacks over. It's just an alternating 6-row repeat. Excuse me, an offset 6-row repeat. But something about it was just a little bit like, for my head. I just felt like a high percentage of the time I was knitting, I felt like I was knitting I thought I was doing it incorrectly, so I'd have to stop and look. You know, you're doing it correctly. Go forward. I don't know, for some reason it was not a pattern that instilled a lot of like intuitive confidence in me. I don't understand why. It's very basic. But for some reason. Anywho, it is very cute. And it has a nice amount of stretch if you are knitting them, especially for somebody that may not be as familiar with their shoe size or what have you. These have obviously been washed and blocked, but it has a good, it's not quite as much as a regular rib, but it has a good amount of stretch to it. So again, that's the Porthos sock, and that is knit with Hazel Knits Artisan Sock in the Woodland colorway. And that is, oh no, my sock blocker has a catch in it. I need to stand that down, yo. And it's one of my favorite sock yarns to work with. So there's a pair. And then, what? I finished another pair? I finished these for my mama, and they're just a plain cuff down heel flap sock. But this is the Arnie and Carlos Regia perfect pair, whatever, yarn. And so they're very enjoyable. I think I talked about this, right? Like you have the cuff yarn as all the solid. And actually the cuff yarn, I cut quite a bit of it off. These are only a 56 stitch sock circumference. So the cuff would have been like this long, which is not as too much for me. So I did cut some of the cuff yarn out. But this is the full repeat for the leg. And then this is the full heel repeat. So you get a little stripe in the arch, which is kind of cute. And then this is the full foot repeat. Now she is a lady size 9, and I only had about 6 rows of that contrast toe color. And again, these are only a 56 stitch sock. So as you can imagine, for me, I'm a 72 stitch. Now, granted, the average is 64, but for a 72 stitch sock, and for me wearing a size 11, this pattern is going to be, I still think, well, I mean, I know I have plenty of yarn for the toe because there's oodles of yarn at the toe. But you're going to, the foot pattern is only going to go, if it goes 2/3 of the way down my foot, I'd be surprised. So just be something to be aware of. And obviously you would have a shorter cuff if you had a larger number of stitches going around. So FYI, okay. But these were very pleasant to knit. Usually I'm a very slow sock knitter, and I just cast these on like 3 weeks ago, so for me that's pretty good to get those done that quickly. And they are very cute. So those are for Mama, and that's all the socks I got done. And those are my only finished objects as well. I don't know why I feel like I need to do this right now, but whatever. Clean your dishes as you go and stuff, okay? So then I also cast on some socks. This is On the Round. Isn't that fun? This is her signature sock base, which I really do enjoy. And I apologize, I cannot recall. That's not true. Edit. Probably didn't remember to do that. But I did look on the website to see what color this was because I have somehow lost the tag. Because I totally wound it forever ago to use. I'm pretty sure this is Calm Before the Storm colorway. And this is her signature sock base, which is not your traditional, you know, most indie dyers have the, and she does too, have the 2-ply high twist or the like 465 yards 80-20. I'm pretty sure this is also an 80-20, but I think it's I don't know, I'm not going to say. But it's her signature sock base. I actually quite like it. It's just got a little bit of toothiness to it, similar to like a Corriedale. If it's not, I apologize, but it's something like that. So it has a little bit of that toothiness to it, which sometimes when it's humid can be unpleasant to knit with, but in this season is wonderful. It helps me to get a tighter gauge without feeling like I'm really fighting against my normal loose gaugedness. So here's the sock itself. It's a cute little, come on, there we go. So it's called Fine and Dandy Socks, and they are by Jessica Gore. I think it's $1 on Ravelry. Gosh. I told you I was sleepy. Clearly my brain is not functioning well. And so I have started I usually don't do her socks toe up. I usually do them cuff down unless they are striping, in which case I will sometimes do them toe up. But I usually don't do a toe up gusset heel. But this pattern is definitely directional. And I wanted it to have this same look. So it made sense to do it toe up. And this is just a cute, it's called like a flower stitch in the pattern. It's that one where you like put your needle in the middle of the stitch 3 rows down, and then you pull the loop up so you have this extra kind of loopy stitch that you've pulled through. It's not like knitting into the stitch below, because you're not using the stitch below to like the legs of it. You're just knitting you're inserting it into the middle of it and pulling yarn through. In fact, the pattern suggests that you can use a crochet hook. I don't. I find it's fine just to use the regular knitting needle. But if you're, I don't know, you might find, obviously somebody's found it helpful to do that way. But yeah, it's quite pleasant. It's not time consuming. It has a fun little effect. It definitely does add a little bit of thickness to your sock, but you don't have to change your stitch count, because basically you're increasing on those rows where you're pulling that flower petal through, and then the next row you're decreasing it back down. So you don't have to monkey around with your stitch counts. It's just kind of like an add a little dollop into your regular vanilla sock. So I found it to be quite enjoyable. You have like 4 rest rows between 2 pattern rows. So it's a nice balance of just mindless do combined with a little bit of something. The only thing I don't like is that when I get to the cuff, I'm going to have to, there's a flower stitch that happens like between rounds to keep, you wouldn't have to do it. You could just omit it. But I think I will keep it. I haven't decided yet. But what I think I will do is switch from double points over to magic looping. And the pattern is written as if you would magic loop anyway. Because it is not fun to have this little motif in between needles. Not fun. So because you have to like move stitches back and forth, which is not fun. Now that I say that, I don't think you technically would have to move stitches back and forth. But anyway, I thought about picking a magic loop for the cuff, and I just found out that ChiaoGoo now has double zeros in their regular fixed length circulars. Why didn't they email me? But yay! That's very exciting, because while I can use a 0 for double points, and I can technically use a 0 for magic looping, I really feel better about a double 0. So I think I'm going to switch over to magic loop for the cuff, and then I think I'll just, like when it's those rows where the motif is between 2 needles, I think I'll just flip-flop it so that it's not. We'll see what I do. Anyway, it's very pleasant. And Mimo likes some fancy socks, so that makes perfect sense. So those are Mimo's. And then Papa's new socks on the needles are right here. Did I put the... Okay, so Papa's socks, I am knitting with Tuku, it's Tuku wool, which is a wool from Finland that I purchased through the Woolly Thistle. If you've never checked out her shop, please do so. She has lots of British yarns specifically, but generally European yarns that she has available for for domestic purchase so that you're not paying those shipping fees to go back and forth. And also so it's like a little bit less time shipping wise. Okay. Okay. So it's 80% finished wool and 20% nylon. By the way, speaking of British wool, speaking of my sorrow over not being at the Edinburgh Yarn Fest because, hi. But B, also the Shetland Wool Project's new book. Have you seen it? It's like $1 billion. Because it weighs like 1 million pounds as well. So apparently, I looked it up because I did, yo. It's self-published and it's a big meaty book, so it has a pretty hefty price tag anyway. But then the shipping to the US is like another 22 pounds. So I'm like, I want somebody to buy it so I can see it at a retreat. So if you're going to a retreat, you should let me look at yours. I'll be at Maryland Sheep and Wool and SSK, and I will also be at the Yarn event in Greencastle, Indiana. So if you have that book, please bring it so I can look at it. Anyway, let's be beautiful. So, anyway, there's no U.S. stockist yet since it's independently published. It's the Isolde has it in her shop, and then Susan Crawford Vintage, is that correct? I think so. Also has available in her shop, but there's no U.S. option yet, so we'll see if that happens. Anyway, back to this yarn. It's 80% finished wool and 20% nylon. This is approximately 160 meters for 50 grams. And this color is H21 Art Repo. Oh wait, maybe it's color, no, that's the lot. H21 Repo is the color. Anyway, it's a wonderful woolly spun wool for socks, yay! Not many American wools are made like that. There's some thread on it because it's on my sewing table, just chill out. Whatever. So isn't it fun and luscious? It has a good natural marl to it. It must be spun from like a humbug yarn because all the colors have that extra depth from the natural fleece. And then I'm knitting the Bootstrap sock from Sock Architecture, and here is my sock so far. Right. Ah! Isn't it fun? It's very enjoyable to knit with. And then, as you'll see, I'm also knitting them with these weird new needles. So I know you've seen them other places. Malia, who is Rhymes with Maria of the Yarn Raising Podcast, formerly the Yarn Raising Podcast, she had these Addies that are called the Flexi Flips in a US 0, and she did not care for them, so she sent them to me to try. And I must be honest with you, I don't know if I like them. I don't dislike them, but I'm not sure that I like them. This is technically a sport weight wool. So actually what I originally tried to do was just pick up on those, on these Regia socks. I tried to just pick up on those with these, but I just flung the extra needle out. But my gauge was a bit looser. So I decided that I should not try to pick up a sock in the middle and knit with it. But I thought also this would be a perfect reason to try this yarn because it's a sport weight sock yarn. So I can't perfectly attest to it because I'm not knitting them with regular sock wool. But I can't decide. Again, I don't dislike them. They do not. I've tried the 9-inch circulars and I do not like those. I dislike those. So this is not the same thing for me. And of course, if you haven't seen them, they have the little flexi bit in the middle. So it's basically like a double point circular hybrid. And it has 2 different tips, which I like because I do prefer one of the tips over the other. But I think if I decide that I'm going to keep these, I'm going to put a little bit of nail polish or something on the tip that I prefer, or maybe the tip I don't prefer. So that it's, yes, clearly if you use the tip that you like to knit off with, it's always going to be on this side of the sock. So there should be rhythm, but somehow, like lots of times when you're watching television or whatever, I pull the sock out and then I look at the television and then I have to like confirm, like, okay, wait, is it the right tip? So that's a bit slowing me down. So if I decide that I'm not going to pass these on to somebody else, I will do that just so that I have a very quick visual. Because the tips, while different, are not... Anyway, it would just be nice to have a more striking visual of which one I want to use and versus which one I do not want to use. So I think like them? I'm not sure yet. The verdict's still out. Now that Caoua has introduced a 00, I may only use that forever. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to go to the yarn store and get one. But so yeah, so I'm enjoying that quite a lot. And I really like this yarn. I really like having a nylon. I don't know that it is woolen spun, but it has the feel of a woolen spun yarn with nylon. So it's very enjoyable to work with. Okay. So then I'll show you my Hansel, because I've gotten a bit more work done on it. And that's by Johnston. Johnston. I don't know if I actually want to put an extra T in there or not. Maybe it's just my... So I have got the color border done. It's very awkward because it has the applied edging, and I only have the applied edging done on this much of the shawl. So there's like strings and needles. It feels like everywhere, but here we go. That's what it's gonna look like when it's finished. So I finished my border. I had talked about last time thinking I might try to do a extension of the border and either do half again more or twice as much. But if I was going to do it symmetrically, I would have needed to purchase another skein of this green yarn here, which would have not been a big deal. But then it occurred to me that I probably also would have needed more yarn for the border because obviously as you knit this, the border requires more yarn because it's getting larger and larger. So, and seeing how slow it is to do this applied edging, it was probably a good decision. Not to go any further on that, but isn't that lovely? So, and this is all Brooklyn Tweed's Loft. This is the Barn Owl colorway. I have Artifact, Pumpernickel, Bird Book, Sap, and Hayloft. And aren't they just yummy? Scrummy yummy. So I have enough that I'm definitely going to use these for another project. Maybe like an anyway, the cowl that's knit on the bias, for some reason I'm just like losing it, but you can see I have quite a bit of all of my yarns left. So I think that would be a perfect use for that, to use my leftovers in one of those, is it afterthought? But that doesn't seem right. Anyway, it's that cowl that's on the bias. I think that would be a fun use for the leftovers. So yeah. So some people were like, why on earth would you have a knitting bag that's so giant? This is my Aran sweater size, and it's perfect for this because you have a ton of yarn in there. You got needles and threads going everywhere. And so you can put it in there, not have to worry. You've got plenty of headspace so that you're not worrying about zipping yarn into the thing. And also you're not like cramming it in there. So when you cram stuff into your knitting bag, the needles are stitches are much more likely to come off the needles as you're pulling it out than if you have lots of space in there just to place it in there and not jam it all down. So, that was a plug. Let me be clear. So then the last thing I'm going to show you is my Granito sweater. And this is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I finished the body! That's right, kids. Sport/fingering weight. Sweater for giant fat lady. Finish the body. Right. So obviously I still need to do my pockets. And I have started the sleeve. This is written for a long sleeve. So I'm going to put a little picture of me wearing, well, not a picture, it's a video here. So this is like a lot of me, but see, so this, okay, so here's like the sleeve. Okay, obviously it's not done yet. But then here's without the sleeve. Oh, right? I have such a conundrum. And also, I don't know if you can tell it because I can't actually see quite exactly how clear this is. But the fun like detail line shows up so nicely in the profile without the sleeve. And then with the sleeve, it's a little bit less pop. Okay, obviously the pockets aren't done yet, so you know. They're not gonna be like super sexy side slits in my sweater, but I know that's what you want to happen, but so what's up? Like, okay. Ooh! See, I don't know what to do. Okay, so hopefully, I think I said in the video, I've already recorded it. I'm really torn about doing the sleeve. I think I have decided that I'm going to go forward with the sleeve. Not exactly because I like the way it looks more. That's actually not true at all. I do not like the way it looks more than the short sleeve, no sleeve, cap sleeve. But the reason I actually cast this sweater on is because I have another sweater knit with this Beaverslide Dry Goods. By the way, this is Beaverslide Dry Goods 2-ply sport in the Juniper Heather colorway. I have another sweater knit with this yarn that is long sleeved, and I do really like it. So I originally cast this on telling myself that I was going to do the long sleeve because I'm not really tall. I'm only like 5'7.5" but all of my length is in my torso. And so while I can wear a petite size jean, because I have short legs, my upper body, my torso is longer. And so all of my sleeves are this long. If I buy a woman's shirt, I buy a lot of men's shirts, but occasionally it's very difficult to find a men's shirt this color, right? So all my shirt sleeves are like this long, unless they're menswear. So it is nice to occasionally have a sweater sleeve that's long enough to actually cover my hand, and at night, especially when it's cold in the house. So that's the reason I actually cast this sweater on, was to make it a house lovely layering piece to keep my little armsies and handsies warm. I'm going to go forward, but I have decided, well, I haven't decided, but I think I definitely want to make another one. And somebody on Ravelry has made a fade. So they've done the fade technique on it, and it's super cute. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be super cute to do just with the drop shoulder in the fade? I think so. That's what I want to do, I think. So I think I'm going to do that. The question would be how to do the finishing on the drop shoulder. But maybe I'll just be crazy and not do finishing. Because of my size, I would not get the whole shoulder in one color of the fade. It would definitely have a break in the middle somewhere. Excuse me. So it would be, I don't know, it feels like it would be visually strange to put a color on top of it. Unless it was the contrasting color from like the hip or something. But I don't know if I'm that crazy. It's crazy enough to wear a fade, okay? I don't know if I have contrasting trim. That's a little kooky wacky. But I could literally, what I did for this pattern was just do a steek for the armhole, which I will do forever again on this pattern. You can see where I cut it. So there's my stitching on the machine. It took like 45 seconds. Granted, I sew for a living, so my machine is always out, but still takes like no time at all. So there's my stitching for my seam, and it just naturally wants to roll back anyway. So it's almost like it has a self-I cord. Maybe that's what I'm going with. Maybe I'm just going with this kind of self-I cord, because you could really just tack this under, and it has that kind of like roundy, poundy feeling that an I-cord has. Or you could like, you could even tack it down and then roll. No, that's crazy. Don't do that. But it naturally rolls under anyway. So, but anyways, I think that's what I want to do though. I think I do want to do a fade that just has the again, it's a drop shoulder. So for me, the sleeve ends about right here. I mean, the torso of it is about right here because again, I'm proportionately wider. So that part is a little bit longer proportionately. So it looks really super cute. Oh, at least I think it does. And again, that seam shows up more. Now, part of the reason the seam does not show up as much is because proportionately I'm bigger on my sides than I am wide. So if you were my same circumference but were a wider person versus a deeper person, this is not personality wise, I'm just talking physical stuff. So if you were wider versus deeper, now I want to sing deep and wide. Let's stop. don't need to get into spirituals. Your little like faux seams, your slip stitch seams would be more visual from the front. But mine are not as, they're visible on the shoulder a little bit, but not so much just straight on. But that said, I still really like it. I find it to be highly enjoyable. And I was super concerned that it wasn't going to fit right because I did not do quite as much as positive ease as is indicated in the pattern. Twofold. A, I was worried that it would look too sloppy. But mostly really it was B because I was like, dude, it's already a pain in the neck enough to knit a sweater my size. I don't want to knit an extra 6 inches. So, for example, she has the fingering weight, Joji has both a fingering weight boxy and then she later introduced the worsted weight boxy. And I think it's easier to do the fingering, like for example, for somebody like me who has a bigger butt, like I have the whoop butt, and I don't particularly like, no, that's not a good illustration. Well, let's just say mine's more exaggerated than that curve. But if this were my back curve and this were my butt, like my butt's like out here, whoop. And so if your sweater does not have any sort of shaping in it and doesn't have drape in it naturally from the fabric, you get like that tenting effect where you just have a line that goes this way from your back shoulder to your butt when there's really nothing in here except air. And so you feel a little bit like boxier, bulkier, tentier. I know the sweater is called a boxy. Like I get it. But like that's a bigger boxiness than if my butt were this size, where the boxiness, like, oh, it goes from my shoulder or my back bra line to my butt and it sticks out that much. If my butt's out here, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's boxy, but it's boxier. Anyway, I think that's easier to pull off with a lighter weight yarn that has more drape than it is to pull off with a heavier weight yarn. It's harder to get that so that it's not quite as like, it's more, you know. I did do some waist shaping and some bust shaping in this, not a ton, just a little bit. And that is written in the pattern as well. I didn't just make it up. Pretty sure it's in the pattern. But I don't know about the boxy. I'm assuming it's not in the boxy because it's boxy. But I think I would, especially if we're going to do the worsted weight, I think I would have to put some in because, again, I like this better than this. That's all I'm saying. For me. You do you. So that's all. Oh my gosh, right? Let's do some shameless self-promotion, shall we? Okay, so there's going to be an update in the shop on March 25th. I don't know. There will be a favorites update on April 1st. I don't know that I'll get another update in between now and Maryland Sheep Wool. I know that sounds crazy, and my bank account says, yeah, that's crazy. But really, thinking about it, I'm not sure that between favorites and getting Maryland Sheep Wool, I'm not sure that I'll get an April update in. That's crazy talk. But I'm a one-woman show, y'all. So, but anyway, so this is March 23rd, and it's all farm-tastic. Are you ready? Sock size, milk bottles. What? How cute are those? Even if you're lactose intolerant, those won't give you a tummy ache. How cute are they? And on the inside, full-on chicken wire. I'm not even lying to you. Look at that. Bam! It's going to keep your knitting in, just like it keeps the chickens in. So that's my sock size. And that yellow is just such a good yellow, right? I'm sorry, the sun might be a little bit too bright. It's just a good, clear, like Kerrygold butter yellow. It's slightly yellower yellow than regular butter yellow. And then, look how cute this is. Right? And that's, that pig is upside down, but there's going to be some that are not. And a sheep. Do you see the sheep? I can't work out left and right, y'all. Why is it you're telling your body to do that? And your brain's like, no, that's not right. Brain, shut up. It's right. There's the sheep. Here's the pig right side up. How cute are those? And look, even in this color combo. So those are in the large wedge size. And then also in the large wedge size, I have this. Ah! The cutest, primariest, happiest farm of your childhood. Okay. Right? There's cows, there's sheep, there's windmills, there's barns, there's pigs. I don't know if there are any chickens on this one, but there are ducks. There are no chickens. But let's just discuss that the trees clearly have apples on them. I'm just saying. There's also a tire swing on one of the trees. Super cute. And then if you're like, I like that one, but I want a sweater size. Well, guess what? In an alternate colorway, you can also get a sweater size. Now these are all, well, except one of them, are quilter's cottons. So these are interfaced with a regular, like medium body interfacing. And then my sweater sizes are interfaced with like the batting weight. So they'll stand up when they're open. Especially if they have any yarn in them, they're more likely to stand up by themselves, see? So again, same pattern with like the fun brown contrast, which I secretly like more. Super cute. And then, this is my favorite one. Oh, what? This one is actually an organic cotton exterior, but the inner is not, and neither is the interfacing, because that's not even possible, I don't think. But look how cute it is. Right. Love it so much. This like owl who's just chilling on the roof of his house. Although this guy, oh, again, the wrong way. This guy freaks me out. I'm not gonna lie. I've been in the garden. Don't discuss. I have dirty fingernails. I just noticed. It's almost time to plant the peas, right? Oh my gosh. Today is officially like the pea planting day. I've never done peas before. I'm going to try them this year. But anyway, aren't they super cute? And this yellow is so good. This is golden. Now this is definitely more of a gold-based yellow than the buttery clear yellow of the egg baskets, or of the milk jugs. Super cute. And then lastly but not leastly, I have these in both sweater size and large wedge size. So for all of your farmer's market dreams, get your cuto veg on. And these are with the cotton linen decorator weight. So, okay. Right. So much cuteness. It's almost ridiculous. Ah. So be sure to check out when your farmers markets are going to start so you can support your local farmers. And also support me by buying it back. Okay. See, I've already stolen the sock bag. Here's with you. Anyway, I hope you have a great week and I'll talk to you next time.